Welcome to Candid Motherhood with Roxy and Jackie, talking everything about your motherhood topics, the good, the bad, the ugly, what to expect and what not to expect. So grab your coffee, grab your energy drinks, put on some pajamas, relax, and get ready for some real talk. Welcome to our podcast. Welcome back, mamas, to another episode of Candid Motherhood. This is episode 3, and we are talking about labor and delivery. So the first thing I think that every mother wants to know is what really happens during labor and delivery.
Okay, well, here I am to tell my story. I'm Roxy, and I have 3 stories to tell you about. So my first one is my daughter, and she's about to turn 9. So this was 9 years ago almost. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how my experience went. So maybe you will know what to expect when yours. So with my first, I actually went into labor at 38 weeks and 5 days. So it was, I know full term is exactly 40 weeks. So I went a little bit early, but it was still term pregnancy. And my water broke actually. So that's how I knew it was time to go to the hospital. And it was my first, so I didn't know what really to expect. But I woke up in the morning, I went to the bathroom, I peed. And as soon as I went to lay down back in bed, I felt like a tear. And I just started like feeling warmth going between my legs. It almost felt like I was peeing myself, but I knew I wasn't because I had just gone to the bathroom. So I was like, I think my water broke. So I called my midwife and she said it sounded like my water did break. And my husband was all panicky, like husbands are.
Yeah.
And so she said, since I didn't know what to expect, to just come in as soon as I could. The hospital was pretty far away. It was like about 45 to 50 minute drive. So I didn't want to waste too much time. So I just took a shower. I gathered my hospital bag and we hopped in the car, grabbed breakfast because I knew once I got to the hospital, they weren't going to let me eat. And we were on our way. When I got there and I got checked in, they hooked up the monitor to me, but it didn't seem like I was really having contractions like they thought I should be having. And I learned later on that that's just how my body labors. But it's my first baby. I didn't know what I was doing or what to expect. So I was trusting the doctors.
You don't know anything when it's your first, delivery. It's really
no.
Nobody told me anything about delivery, like at all. So when I went into delivery, I had no idea what to expect.
Everything that I learned, basically, I learned from like watching TV shows about pregnant women, which is not real life. And I learned the hard way. So I got connected to the Pitocin, and that's basically like a medicine that they give you that speeds up your contractions and speeds up your labor. And let me tell you that it works, and they hurt like hell when you were on Pitocin. I mean, it jacked up my contractions from 0 to 100 in literally 2 hours. I mean, I was in labor for 27 hours with my first.
Wow.
After hours and hours of laboring, I decided, it's time to get an epidural because this hurts and I can't take it anymore.
After how many hours did you get an epidural?
Don't remember exactly because it's been so long ago, but I do remember when I was about 5.5 centimeters dilated. That's when I got the epidural because I'm like, this pain is just getting too bad. It had to be maybe like 8 hours in. Anyways, after I got my epidural, my nurse was telling me that my epidural guy was like the best of the best in the whole hospital and that I was getting the best doctor for the job. And she was right. He did a great job. I didn't feel anything after that epidural. It was like heaven. I went from like
itself is scary because you don't know what to expect with that either. And you don't realize that you have like a long needle that's going through your back,
It's probably good that he didn't show me the needle before he put it in my back because that would have freaked me out.
Right. And
the hardest
is that they kick everybody out of the room. You have to be in there with just you, the anesthesiologist, and a nurse.
Yeah, I had one support person, but besides that, yes, you're right. They do kick everyone out of the room. And it was a little scary. And I think the hardest part is having to stay still through those contractions because you're already in so much pain with the contractions. And they're like, hold still, hold still. Yeah. And I'm just like, how am I gonna do that?
I know. But once you do get that epidural, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
It was like night and day. I mean, I went from like the worst mood to like, like I can do this. I mean, my cousin has a picture of me playing cards right after I got my epidural with a big smile on my face, like I wasn't even laboring. After a while, I just wasn't progressing, and the doctors were pushing for me to get a C-section, but I was really like, no, I really don't want one. I really don't want one. We're gonna wait. The baby was fine. The heartbeat was fine. So I was like, really, I don't see any like need to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I labored through the whole night. I probably should mention that my water had broken at like 6:50 or 7:00 in the morning. So now the next day at 9:30, that's when she was born. So all through that night, I was laboring and it was really getting tough through the night. I was really in a lot of pain. I was like throwing up. My blood pressure had started going up. So they're like, if you don't deliver soon, you know, you're going to have to get a C-section. So I'm like, no, I don't want that. I really didn't want that. Yeah. I mean, if I needed to get it, I would have, but I was just trying everything in my power not to get one. So eventually, I did end up pushing. And like 3.5 hours after pushing, I finally had a baby.
That is a long, long time.
I was exhausted. I had nothing left in me. I was like, I thought I was going to like just pass out on the bed right there.
See, I mean, I pushed, but not for that long.
What had happened was my midwife actually realized that they were giving me way too much Pitocin, and that's the reason why I wasn't progressing. So they had to have it. They had to have my dosage, and finally, like that's when it started progressing. So I think that the medicine slowed me down.
I know that when my water broke, it broke at like 3:00 in the morning, and it was funny because I was laying in bed, and I was, I think, maybe like 2 days from my due date, and I was laying in bed and I said, please, God, if there is a God, let my water break. And all of a sudden I felt like this like pop, and I knew it. I'm like, oh my God, my water just broke. So I called my doctor, and the doctor's like, you know, you might want to take a shower. This is the last time you're going to shower in a few days. And then, you know, gather yourself and go to the hospital. You know, the hospital was only like 10 minutes away. So we get to the hospital, and they check to make sure my water actually broke. They like test whatever is coming out of you, and if it turns a certain color, it means that, you know, your water is broken. So then they hooked me up to the monitors and everything, and they started freaking out because my blood pressure was like all over the place and high, very high. So they started freaking out, and I just remember they gave me like, I want to say morphine. I don't even know if that's right though. They gave me something before I actually got the epidural, which did absolutely nothing. I was in so much pain.
It starts with a D, like I know what you're talking about. Like it's a medication that takes the edge off. Yeah.
Yeah. So they gave me that, and then by like 9 in the morning, I was like, I need the epidural. And they made me wait even longer because the anesthesiologist was in surgery. So I had to wait for him out in order to get the epidural. So that was annoying. But I finally got it and I felt fine. And so what you don't realize is when you have an epidural, they put a catheter in you, because obviously you're not going to be able to feel when you have to go to the bathroom. So it was time for me to push, and they forgot that they had the catheter in me still. So when I went to push, I actually pushed the catheter out, which will get into what happened with that later on, because something like happened that really affected me with that. And I really think it's from that. So I started pushing. I only pushed maybe like 3 or 4 times, and Nate came out. But when he came out, the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, and they had no indication that this was even happening. And they were just like so worried about my blood pressure that they didn't even notice that this was going on. So Rob didn't even get to cut the umbilical cord because the doctors were like freaking out because he wasn't breathing. So I'm freaking out. And they're like, oh, don't look over there. Just, focus on me, the doctor. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, my baby just came out and he's not breathing. So, finally he came to and everything. And they ended up putting me on this medicine for 24 hours after delivery. And I mean, I feel like this place was torturing me because I was on this blood pressure medicine, and literally I was the thirstiest I have ever been in my entire life, that you could not give me enough water, enough ice chips. And because of that, I had to pee every hour. And I was hooked up to this machine. So I had to call the nurse every single hour to unhook me. And, after you have a baby and you go into the bathroom, it's like a whole process in there. So every hour getting up and going to the bathroom, it takes a long time. And I was getting very frustrated. But I ended up still having a healthy baby. So that was good.
Yeah, that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to mention with the first labor that I went to actual like a labor. They had a really big labor and delivery unit in this hospital that I went to, and they didn't have a limit on how many visitors and people you could have with you. Like when you're laboring, you can only have 2 people, but up until you go into like I guess they call it like stages. So up until the last stage of labor, which is pushing, you can have as many people as you want in the room. So me, I'm like the oldest granddaughter or whatever in my family, oldest cousin. So I'm the first one to have a baby in my entire family. So they were so excited that every single member of my family showed up. And I'm not joking when I tell you there was about 30 people that were alternating coming into my room. Like people came from New York, New Jersey, everywhere to come and see my baby. And I feel like I loved the support that I got from them, but at the same time, it was exhausting having to entertain my entire family while I'm in labor.
I didn't have anybody in the room when I was in labor. It was just Rob. I didn't want anyone in the room. I was like, leave me the hell alone.
When I was pushing, I had my mom and Martin, my husband, and my sister was watching.
See, I don't know. I'm not really close to my family like that I would want them in the delivery.
Yeah, I was a little afraid because it was my first time. So I kind of felt like I want my mom there, because she's been through it. So, and then my sister, she just wanted it for the experience for when she was having a baby. So I said, all right, I don't mind. Oh. And then of course my husband wants to be there for the witness to the birth of his child.
Yeah, I told Rob, I was like, I'm so happy I'm not on your end.
Martin almost fainted. I saw him getting a little white face.
I can imagine. I mean, they offer you a mirror if you want to watch. And
yes.
No, thank you. I'm good on my end. I don't want to watch.
At first I wanted the mirror, but then I realized I was wearing my glasses and I took my glasses off to be more comfortable. And I can't see a foot in front of me without them. So I said, why am I going to have a mirror there? I can't even see. So I told them to just forget it. But yes, while I was pushing, my midwife was like, reach down there, feel your baby's head. And I'm like, no, I was freaked out by it. But then after a while, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I did. And that kind of gave me the little jolt of energy I needed to just push her out,
That's a little, I don't know. I didn't do that at all with any of them.
Well, it was weird.
People do though. They pull their own baby out.
Well, let me tell you, with my second and third, I had way different experiences. So with my second labor, it went much smoother. And if you're wondering if second labors like go faster than the first, absolutely. Like the first labors, they're not uncommon to last over 24 hours.
They're also less traumatic because your body's already been through
that too.
I mean, but there's also different side effects, at least that I had anyways.
Yeah. Well, I didn't talk about any of the side effects I had with the first. But I know like a lot of people, they tear a lot, you know, and you have to get stitches and stuff. And I did tear, but not that much. I only had to get 2 or 3 stitches. I mean, I've known people who had episiotomies, which are really bad.
Yeah, I think mine was almost an episiotomy.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
That's the worst part of the recovery is the stitches.
Yeah, the stitches take a while to heal and you have to be careful not to do anything strenuous because you can tear them really easily.
Not only is the newborn wearing diapers, but you're wearing diapers also, because if you think that you're not after birth, you're wrong. It's unbelievable what happens. You have to wear this mesh like diaper underwear thing with about 3 pads, and then you have to also have the witch hazel pads and then the numbing cream, and then when you actually go to the bathroom, you're not allowed to wipe yourself. So you have to squirt yourself with a little bottle. So that was lovely to find out, and you have to do that for a few weeks. It really took me like a good 6 weeks to really heal, at least with the first one.
Yeah, I agree. It took me about that long too. I rested a lot with my first because it was my body went through so many changes. I had never been through that before. And actually one of my stitches actually pulled out and I had to get it redone, which is terrible because the first time you still have the epidural and you're not feeling it that much, but the second time you don't have that epidural and it hurts.
Yeah. Well, see, what happened with me was when they forgot to take the catheter out when I started pushing during recovery for like a good week or 2, I had no sensation of having to pee. It was the weirdest thing ever. Like I knew I had to pee, but I couldn't go, and I just had no feeling of actually having to go. So I eventually went to the doctor, which after 2 weeks, he gave me an internal exam. So that was terrifying and traumatic in itself because you just gave birth 2 weeks ago. So they were going to try to put a catheter in me and drain like whatever needed to come out. And I was like, well, I could still go to the bathroom, but like there's no sensation. But like after I think like 2 weeks, it thankfully came back. But I think because they forgot to take it out, it damaged some sort of nerve or something. That was pretty scary too.
It's always scary when, you went into the hospital perfectly fine and you leave like, what the hell? What happened to me?
It's so funny. Like Rob says, when I had Lacey, she like carved her name on the way out.
That's so funny. Well, Julie came out like a cone head because she was stuck in my canal for so long.
Well, I mean, my second delivery was totally different than the first. With my second one, we were told at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the morning to go to the hospital. It's time. I was already 40 plus weeks. I was past my due date. My blood pressure was like starting to get crazy and stuff. So they were going to induce me, which is not fun. They had to break my water And when they say break your water, that means they stick their entire arm, and I mean arm, up there and make the water break. So, I mean, that was so painful and so dramatic, but it broke my water. And then they gave me Pitocin to speed things up. And I remember telling them that I wanted to have an epidural. They gave me the epidural, and I told them, I said, something's not right. I still feel pain. So the anesthesiologist came back and he was like, oh, we need to mix you some more cocktail. So he gave me more. And like, I feel like that's a common misconception too, is like, they say if you once you get the epidural, that's it. Like you can't have more. It's intravenously, it's an IV. So if you want more of the drug, they'll give you more if you need it. After that, I told the doctors, I was like, listen, I need to push. And the nurse was like, there's no way that you're ready to push. And I told him, like, I'm telling you, I have to push. So the doctor comes in and she's like, oh, she's ready to push. And then I like had to push at that moment. Like, you just know when you have to do it. And the doctor is like messing around because she was allergic to latex and she couldn't find any non-latex gloves. And I freaked out on her. And I was like, if I don't push right now, it needs to happen. So I actually pushed probably like 3 times and Lacey was out and everything was fine. So the second delivery was different in the sense that I needed to be induced and my water breaking was painful and the Pitocin was not fun. But the recovery was good. I remember our hospital gave the parents like a date night in the hospital, and they gave you like a white tablecloth dinner, like surf and turf with the waitress service and everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm fine. I'm like dressed in my regular clothes, and the other moms, they look like hell, because they just had a baby. But it was my second one, so I felt fine afterwards. The recovery really was fine.
That's awesome. What you said about the epidural giving you more medicine, they definitely can, because with Julie, I remember I was in labor for so long that I had actually run out of medication and they had to come and refill my epidural. Yeah. And by the time I was pushing, it was already running out again.
Yeah, I don't know why like people think that you can't get more.
But I do know that there is a point where it's too late. And if you get it, it would be too late. That happened to me with my second. So when I went into labor with my second, with my son, he came so fast that I didn't even expect it. I thought I was going to be in labor like I was with Julie, and it happened the exact same way. My water broke in the morning, right after I peed. I went to get in bed, same exact scenario. So I already knew, yep, this is what it is. But I knew not to rush to the hospital because I feel like with my first, I went too soon. And had I not gone so soon, maybe I wouldn't have needed so much Pitocin and, things would have progressed.
Yeah.
So I waited a little longer. I let my midwife know, but I also let her know that, hey, I'm not going in right away. So I took a shower. I took my time at home. And when I went in, I was already like halfway to labor, but same thing, that happened with my first. My contractions weren't really that strong. They only felt like mild period cramps, and they felt like they should be stronger than they were. But now I realize that's just the way my body labors. I don't really have those really strong contractions until right before the baby's born. They didn't start me on Pitocin right away. I wanted to labor a little bit without it. But after a couple hours being there, they're like, well, let's just give it to you to speed it up. But I knew once they gave me that Pitocin that my contractions were going to start hurting. So I ordered the epidural as soon as they gave me the Pitocin. Yeah. However, the anesthesiologist was in surgery, and so he wasn't available, and he was the only one that could help me. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And I remember like yelling at them, like, when is it going to come?
Yeah.
So nothing was happening. nothing was happening for a few hours. So Martin was like, we hadn't eaten. And Martin was like, do you mind if I like run out real fast and go grab something to eat? I'll be right back. I'm like, okay, no problem. So he leaves and he doesn't come back for like an hour. And I'm like, where is he? So I'm calling him, like, where are you? They're really like my contractions are really starting to pick up. It turns out that he actually left the hospital because we were right in town. So like, less than a mile, any direction, there's fast food. So he just like, all right, I was just going to go grab Wendy's real fast and come back. And he hit traffic on the way back and he almost missed the birth of his son because it's happening so fast. So I'm like,
Rob left and got food also, but he didn't like almost miss the birth, but he was gone forever and he kept leaving, coming in and out. And it was making me mad. I'm like, why can't you just stay in here? But then I was mad also that he was eating and I didn't get to eat. And he's like, oh, these chicken fingers is so good. I'm like, can you stop right now? Because seriously, I'm about to rip your head off. I want to eat.
The not eating part is like the worst. And it was worse with my first because I was in labor for so long. I hadn't eaten in over a day. I don't know how they expect you to have any energy after that. I think it's because if you do have to go into surgery, like they say it's not good to go into surgery with a full stomach. So they want to make sure that your stomach is as empty as possible when you go into like any emergency surgery that you would need, I'm pretty sure that's why they tell you. Like you felt like you needed a push. That's how I felt. So all of a sudden I got that urge and I'm like, I need to push and I need to do it right now. And the nurse was like, oh, all right, I'll be right back. And she went to go find my midwife and she couldn't find her anywhere. And she's paging her and calling her and she's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, I am ready to push. And they're like, no, don't push yet. Hold it in. And I'm like, I can't hold it in. Like, this is not something I have control over. Like it needs to come out.
Yeah. So she made it. A question that a lot of people have is like, how do you know when you're ready to push? And it's like your body, when you're in labor, just really goes into this outer body experience, at least for myself. And you just turn into like a superwoman and you just know when you have to push. It's just like the weirdest feeling. Like they say, bear down, like as if you're, taking a poop. And that's really what it is. And like, if you have that same pushing as if you're taking a poop, then you'll pop that baby right out.
For me, it felt like a really heavy pressure.
Yeah.
It almost, okay, I'm going to put it in like a funny way, but it's almost like if you had a bowling ball inside of you and you like like stand up and gravity just wants to like pull that bowling ball out of you. That's how it kind of felt. Like it's just something really heavy that just needs to like fall out of you. I didn't have to push very long to push Nicky out. He came out in 2 pushes. It was really easy to deliver him actually.
Well, but then your delivery was really different than all the other ones, is you had a home birth.
Yeah. I had a home birth and I just knew from my past experiences. My second one was not bad, but I just always wanted to do a home birth, but I was just too afraid to do it with my first. Then with my second, I liked my midwife, so I stayed with her and she just delivers in the hospital. But then I wanted to do something different my third time.
Did you buy the home, like the pool and everything that you like see people using?
I rented the pool. Some people do buy it. If it was your first, you can rent them. You buy like, okay, so this is how it is. It's really sanitary. The pool, it's basically just like a big inflatable pool. It just, the edges are a little higher. So, that you can like rest on them. And then it has handles on the side, but you buy a lining that goes on top of it. They sell special linings, certain sizes. So you're not actually pouring water directly into the pool. You have the liner in it.
Like, and how would you clean that?
You take the liner out and the pool still gets sterilized after that.
So, I would hope so.
Yes.
That would be pretty disgusting.
You never actually touch the pool. It's a big liner that goes over it. So I had that question too. And actually, when you do a home birth, you have to provide all the materials, because in the hospital, they'll give you everything you need. But at home, I had to buy a home birth kit online, and it comes with like the peri bottle that they give you after in the hospital. It comes with one of those. It comes with a whole pack of pads. It comes with a whole bunch of stuff. Those like pee pads that they put under you to like catch all the amniotic fluid and everything.
That's what people don't know.
All this kind of stuff.
When you're in the hospital, all the stuff that they give you, you can take home with you. So stock it up. Take the diapers, take the cream, take the peri bottles and all the witch hazel pads. You're going to want them. Take it all.
My favorite were the cooling packs, the ones that you put right into your, you just like those. Pop them open and you shake them up and it gets really, really cold. I ordered a whole box of those for my home birth too.
I should have had ordered a whole box also. Those things are amazing.
You can order them.
That's nice. I know with my first one, I was in so much pain and I had stitches and everything. Like I had to sit on one of those like blow up donuts because I just couldn't move. I couldn't sit down. It was so painful, but those ice packs are amazing.
Being in the water and laboring, it made it so much more comfortable. And actually, I did something different with this pregnancy that I had not done with the others. And I did something called Hypno birthing meditation. If you want to look it up, you can find it on YouTube. I don't know, maybe Spotify has it too, but it's basically just like a hypnotist talking, and she's saying like, and they don't call contractions, they call it like, like something else. And it's to kind of like trick your mind into thinking like, this is natural. Contractions don't hurt. Your body's doing what it needs to do. And what I would do is you're supposed to listen to it from about 28 weeks on. So I started a little earlier. I think I started around 20 weeks. And all I would do is I would put my headphones in my ears and listen to it and fall asleep listening to it every night. You think that it doesn't work like because you don't hear it, but subconsciously it works. By the time I was laboring, I didn't feel any contractions until right when I was pushing. And even when I did feel a contraction, it was like, all right, I got this. You can even ask my husband, like, I didn't scream. I didn't do anything. Like, no, I lived in an apartment with, there was 4 apartments. So there was somebody underneath me, somebody next to me, and then somebody underneath that neighbor. And nobody heard me. Nobody even knew I had a baby. And it was the most awesome experience. I mean, my midwife only lived 5 minutes down the road from me. So I got lucky. And she's like, I'm here whenever you want me to come, just call me. And I said, all right, I'm just gonna like labor and I'll tell you when you need to come. I felt comfortable because she was so close. So I waited to do one question is that I know a lot of people have is like, how do you know when it's time to go to the hospital or when it's time to call the midwife? And my water had broke already the night before. So my contractions started really slowly. But I followed the 5-1-1 rule, and it's when your contractions are 5 minutes apart, they last for 1 minute and for 1 hour. So that's the rule that I followed. And as soon as they started getting like 2 minutes, I called her because I wanted her to be there.
Yeah.
And I just labored in the tub. When she got there, I like had him in an hour. I'm not even kidding, like 1 hour.
Yeah, see, I really don't know if I could do a home birth. Like, I would just be nervous that, if you had a complication, what would happen? I mean, I know you call 911 and everything, but, would they be able to get to you in time?
Well, that's one of the things that we discussed beforehand. But I felt pretty confident that I already had 2 kids and I didn't have any complications. So I really wasn't expecting any complications to happen. But the thing I really felt comfortable about was she was only 5 minutes down the road and the hospital was only 5 minutes down the road. I'm in a really central location where I live now compared to my other 2. So I felt really comfortable. Like ambulance can be here in literally seconds if I needed them to. I think that my husband was more afraid of what would happen in an emergency situation than I was. Yeah. But I mean, that's given because I'm the one delivering the baby, not him. So it's easy for guys to worry.
I know. I just know, like with my first delivery, that because my blood pressure was so high and that Nate's umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck, they weren't just worried about him, they were worried about me too. You know, I had the potential of dying during birth also, but thankfully, you know, that didn't happen. So, you know, I wonder how many successful home births are out there. I'm pretty sure there's a lot, otherwise I guess people wouldn't do it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And my midwife is so experienced. She's an older woman. And I mean, she's delivered babies who are now my age. So I know that I was in good hands with her. And if you are going to go like a home birth route, just make sure that you interview a couple of people to make sure that you're going with the right one for you, because also midwives have different styles. So, you know, you want to go with the one that you feel most comfortable with.
You know, and also going back on taking the stuff from the hospital, like the diapers and the ointments and things like that. A lot of questions that first-time moms have is what to pack in your delivery bag. What do you need to bring to the hospital with you, for the baby? I know for myself that I brought my own clothes, my own underwear. You definitely need your own pads. I mean, at least for myself, I felt more comfortable using like my own brand, or, you know, not whatever the hospital gives you. And then as far as the baby, I really only brought maybe one or two outfits, a blanket, diapers, wipes. And you definitely have to make sure that you have your car seat ready to go, and that it's in the car, it's set up, you know how to use it. You can put the baby in and, you know, buckle him in, and then they actually take you down to the lobby to make sure that you have the car seat in the car. They'll go out and check the car to make sure that it's ready to go, because otherwise you cannot leave with that baby.
That's right. That's one thing that that you have to make sure that you have. And I actually had forgotten that my first time, but luckily, you know, we weren't in COVID times, so other people could come visit me. So like my mom drove it down there. It was no big deal. But also packing your delivery bag, make sure you bring your phone charger. That's a big thing that sometimes people forget.
Also, earplugs. I know that like when I was hooked up to a blood pressure machine and there's other machines, thankfully I was able to have a private room, both deliveries, but other people aren't as lucky and they're going to have to share a room. But earplugs, definitely a must.
And I was going to say headphones also, so you can listen to your music or listen to your hypnobirthing in my case, and just anything that helps you relax. I think listening with your headphones will help
too, because these hospitals, like maybe they'll feed you breakfast and lunch and dinner, but there's no snacks. So if you're hungry, there's nothing there.
On my list, I have cash for food to buy snacks, because you're right, they don't provide snacks for you. So I would just send my husband down every, you know, once a day and like go stock up on some snacks at the cafeteria.
I was going to say also, if you have a natural birth and not a C-section, you're typically in the hospital for 2 to 3 days. And, you know, depending when you get to the hospital, that could be considered day one. So if you get to hospital at 11:59, that's day one. So, you know, you could really technically only be in the hospital for a day or two, which, you know, you really don't want to be in there for as longer. But I know that if you have a C-section, you're in the hospital for 5 days, which could be a lot. So you're going to need things that are going to make you comfortable while you're there.
Yeah, I put also shampoo and conditioner, your toothbrush, all your toiletries,
Yes.
because they don't really provide you, and towels. They don't really provide you with anything except for the things that you need postpartum.
Did you shower while you were there? I don't think I actually took a shower while I was in the hospital.
I did. We had our, I was lucky. The hospital I was in was just one single person to a room, and we had walk-in showers. So I was able to shower and everything. Yep, I showered.
I know with my first, I got to the hospital like 4 a.m. So I was there for a full 2 days before I went home. And then when I got home, I definitely had a hard time recovering. And I also had a hard time adjusting to having a baby. I don't think I really knew it at the time that I was going through some postpartum, to the point where like, I didn't know if I made the right decision, which I mean, there's no return policy on children. So obviously I can't return him, but you know, I had those doubts where like, I don't know, like I didn't want the baby. I wanted to like get rid of the baby. I don't know if that sounds like terrible, but like, that's how I felt.
I mean, it sounds terrible, but really those are real feelings that mothers go through after giving birth. And I think that I definitely experienced a little bit of postpartum as well, but I didn't realize that I was actually going through postpartum until, I would probably say, until I had my second child. And like, I looked back in retrospect and was like, wow, like I don't have the same feelings with this child that I did with my first.
I agree.
It almost kind of makes you feel like what's wrong with me.
Right.
But I think the reality is that it's kind of a taboo subject, and a lot of women don't want to admit it because they feel so guilty about having those types of feelings. But really, I mean, it's something that I think it should be discussed more, because I think that more people have it than
I know
other mothers realize.
My first pregnancy, I had it. The second one, I didn't have any postpartum. But I know that with the first pregnancy, my emotions were all over the place. Like your hormones are just trying to adjust from being pregnant, and now you're not. And I just remember like crying one minute, laughing the next, mad the next, crying again, but all trying to take care of a newborn. And at the same time, you know, like I said, thinking, was this right? Did I make a mistake? Should I do something to hurt the baby, to get rid of the baby? Like these really were the thoughts that I was thinking, and I just don't know where it came from. And that's not how I really felt, but that's what was going on in my mind.
Yes, I agree. And like, just hearing the baby crying kind of like made you cringe at the same time. Like, oh my gosh. I know that during that time, my husband actually had to step up a lot, and he was really being so supportive of me during that time, knowing the changes that I was going through. And I actually think that he kind of picked up on it faster than I even realized that I was like being that way, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I'm really, really grateful that he was there.
Rob was the same way. He was very hands-on, and he knew that I was like going through something, whether I was ready to admit it or not. And he definitely stepped up and did the role as dad while I was an emotional wreck.
I know when I left the hospital, before I left the hospital for my first kid, one of the requirements before I left was making me watch a video about shaken baby syndrome. Did they make you watch that video?
No, I did not have to watch that video.
No. They wouldn't let us out of the hospital until we watched the video and signed like a paper saying that we watched this video. And I was like, oh my God, why are they making me watch this horrible video? And then when I went home, I was like, okay, well, I can see. Yeah. I would never, but I would never do that either. But people would get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. Like there are some nights where you're just like up every 2 hours or so, and you're just like, can this baby shut the hell up? Like, can I shake it to shut it the hell up? But I mean, I never actually did that. Maybe that's what we'll talk about in our next episode, is all about recovering with a newborn, postpartum, and dealing with those first 3 months of the baby's life are the most crucial and critical, and the most amount of milestones really are going to happen in those 3 months. So I think that will be our next episode.
I agree. And I definitely think we need to stop putting so much of a stigma around depression and postpartum, because I think that more people go through it than you realize.
Definitely. Well, thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we will talk to you on our next episode.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye, Candid Mamas. If you enjoyed listening to Candid Motherhood, please consider making a small donation so we can make this podcast better. We are currently in the need of new microphones. Just go and click on the support button and donate anything that you would like. Everything is appreciated. Thank you so much, Candid Mamas. Thank you so much for listening to Candid Motherhood Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please subscribe, share, and rate our podcast.
If you have any ideas for future episodes or want to learn more about us, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at candid.motherhood and on Twitter at cmotherhood.
We appreciate your love and support. Until next time, thank you, Candid Mamas.